Service. What is up, listeners? Welcome back to another episode of the Full Service Podcast. I am Tank Smith, your host. Today is episode 54. Thanks for being here. Shout out to my guest from last week, Cherith Fuller. Cherith, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. That was a good time. Listeners, if you have not, make sure you check out last week's episode. Give Cherith a follow. She is on Twitter at Cherith Fuller and at Cherith_NSFW. I have a link to her Twitter, her website, her OnlyFans, and the Libsyn page from last week, so make sure you hit that Libsyn page. Show her some love. If you're on social media, we are as well. We're at Full Service Pod on Instagram and Twitter. My personal Instagram and Twitter at TankFunkadelic. Give me a follow as well. If you enjoy the podcast, if you like what we're doing here, make sure you subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to us on. Hit that like button, hit that follow button, and you'll be alerted as soon as a new episode drops. Ratings and reviews really do help for visibility for the podcast, so if you could, hit us with that 5-star rating, write a review, that would help us out incredibly. I'll love you forever. I say it every week. Hit me up, let me know you wrote a review. I will send you a sticker. Hey. Today, episode 54, I'm excited. Take a trip down under, go to Australia. My guest is Jett Black, a former sex worker and the CEO of Sweet Release Agency. Jett formed Sweet Release in 2018. It's an adult entertainment marketing and PR agency. So basically any business in the adult entertainment spectrum they represent it. From sex toy companies, escorts, porn stars, brothels, literally anybody. Jett started escorting in Sydney and has been in the industry for almost 10 years now. So he's talked about his start, using his knowledge of the adult industry and his expertise in marketing to form Sweet Release, the creation of X Awards, which is basically the Australian AVN Awards, how coronavirus has affected Australia, the adult entertainment industry in Australia, and so much more. It's a lot of fun. I definitely think you'll enjoy this. You can find Sweet Release on Twitter at sweetreleaseau_. Their website is sweetrelease.agency, and you can find Jett on Twitter at JettBlackAU. Follow all those accounts. But no, I hope you enjoy this interview with Jett Black. I will see you on the other side. Later. Welcome back, listeners. It's Tank Smith. I'm excited for today's episode. My guest, a former sex worker and the CEO of Sweet Release Agency, Jett Black. Jett, thanks for being on the podcast.
Hey, Tank. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Hopefully my Aussie accent's not too hard for people to understand. But yeah, no, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, I'm excited. Where are you in Australia? Where are you located?
So I'm currently located in Melbourne, Victoria. So that's down towards the bottom end of Australia, which is quite fitting for me as someone in the sex industry. I would deem myself as a bottom, although I was topping from the bottom when I was working in the industry. So yeah, so Victoria is where I'm located now, which is lovely. Although I was originally born in Sydney.
Oh, okay, sweet. How what do you like better, Sydney or Melbourne?
I would have to say, depending on what you're going for, Melbourne's got the culture, the arts, the wine bars, and the good food. Sydney's good for a short, quick fuck time, as opposed to a place I would probably move to again. Not ratting on Sydney, but I do love the laid-back vibe of Melbourne. It's very different to Sydney. I think if people come to Australia, go to Sydney for your parties, and yeah, if you're in heat, go to Sydney for a little bit of tourism and some sex. And then if you go to Melbourne, you have that more cruisy atmosphere. Although Melbourne is more sex positive, I think, than Sydney in terms of parties and swinger events and your open-mindedness to trying fetishes and kinks. Melbourne seems to be much more open-minded to that than Sydney, whereas Sydney is a little bit more hard partying atmosphere. So, yeah, I love that part of Sydney. It's good for a holiday, and it's good to go to Sydney for the Mardi Gras. But you know, it's good to come back to my new home, which is Melbourne, for the last couple of years. So,
sweet. What do you like to do for fun? What are you passionate about?
Pre-lockdown, I enjoyed going out to clubs. I enjoyed me nightclub routine. Definitely performing, which I haven't been able to do now for a while. So aside from the sex industry stuff, which I love, and I've been in this industry now for 10 years, my other claim to fame is working as a singing drag performer. Originally dabbling around Sydney gay bars and giving that a go, and then I got, what, fuck it, I'm sick of doing the gay bar scene. I'll go and do some heterosexual events because
Okay.
they seem to appreciate it a lot more. I think the gay shows like RuPaul's Drag Race has more. Actually, no, I'll correct myself here. I think RuPaul's Drag Race has a lot of people that watch it that are starting out in drag, and then you've got the straight people that love it because it's so out there.
Yeah.
So you've got the young queens taking notes, and then the other queens that have been around for a while just refining themselves, going, "Oh, that's how you draw an eyebrow. Oh, maybe I should paint my cheeks on like that instead of using bronzer." Um,
Yeah.
but then you got your heteronormative community that really embraces it all. So I stepped out of the gay bars a couple of years ago and decided that maybe doing some weddings and some hens parties and some corporate functions might be more my thing. And yeah, it turned out really well for me. So then my drag career in clubs turned into drag career on cruise ships and hotels and product launches. And I think the last major event I performed for in drag was for Emirates,
Oh,
the
nice. Nice.
airline. So they own a few hotels here in Australia that are like 5, 7 star properties, or what they call 7 star properties, but they are amazing. And had the pleasure of performing there at their hotels and doing product launches and all that sort of fun stuff. So yeah, I love it. That's my go to when I get a chance to do that sort of thing. Dolling up and being someone completely different. Whacking a wig on and painting my face and whacking some heels on. Although I do regret the heels every time I take them off because I forget how. Now that I've been in lockdown now for almost 7 months, the next drag booking that comes in, I might just wear flats,
Yeah.
just in case. But yeah, so the drag thing's always a good thing to do. It's always fun. Alter ego's name there's charismatic, as in charisma.
Ooh, nice.
And yeah, no, after doing the drag, the gay bars and all that sort of amazing opportunities there, I ended up on reality TV, and I was on our version of Australia's Got Talent. Uh,
Oh shit!
yeah,
Fuck yeah!
which got me some exposure, and my parents became memes, which was interesting. So they loved my mom. They really loved my mom. So my mom became a meme on Twitter and went viral. And people were like, "Oh, look at her, hashtag adorbs." And I think the only meme I got done of me was me crying because I got a standing ovation and 4 yes votes from people like
Oh,
Sophie Monk and Kelly Osbourne, who absolutely loved me. So it was that was an experience, and I miss
this.
performing. Aside from singing and doing the occasional performance for weddings or gay bars or charities. It's pretty much, it's more the arts, or the refined arts, and a bit of culture and live music and theatre shows. I'm really into my arty farty stuff.
That's amazing. I feel like once your parents become memes, that means you made it like officially. That's
I think
that's
they made
incredible.
it. Mum got more followers on Twitter than me. So I was like, hang
Hell
on, I'm
yeah.
the one that sang on stage. You clapped and cried in the audience, but you were there, which is great. I think it's awesome. I've got parents like them, to be honest,
That's
that
amazing.
are open minded and that accept me for being the gay creative drag queen guy that works in the sex industry. It's good to know they have no filter. So
Oh yeah. You said that you were in the sex industry for like 10 years. You've been in for 10 years.
yeah, that's right. So about a decade.
Can you remember the first time you ever heard of sex work at all?
Heard of?
Yeah.
I saw it. Actually, no, I did. The first time I saw sex work being a thing was in a series called Queer as Folk,
Okay.
which is like this really awesome series. Basically, my first exposure to anything of the gay community, even though at the time I wasn't really out of the closet, I saw this series called Queer as Folk, and I remember seeing nightclubs and amazing parties that was always like, I think I was 15 or 16 at the time, going, oh my God, like, I really want to experience that sometime, but at the moment, I'm not sure that's my scene or my thing. But I remember seeing some sex workers in those shows that I was watching and getting a little bit of an understanding about what it was, but I really had no idea prior to stepping into the industry what it was really like until I
Okay.
kind of threw myself in head first, so to speak, and really got a feel for it.
How did that happen? How'd you get in?
So originally it was coming out as a gay guy and then diving into gay bars, the first opportunity I had, and that opened up a lot of opportunities for me very quickly. I was what they call a twink, and that's not to be confused with the Twinkie. I've mentioned this for another podcast, but they're like, "What the fuck's a twink? Isn't that cream filled sponge cake?" I'm like, "No, there may have been some cream filling." In my escort career, receiving or giving, but there was definitely no sponge. um, but yeah, so I was what they called a twink back then, and that was like a skinny guy, no hair, kind of boyish looks, boy next door sort of style. And because I was new to the gay community, I had a lot of people throwing themselves at me very quickly. Like the moment I stepped into a gay bar with my two mates at the time, all these people wanted to buy me drinks and take me home in the first 20 seconds of walking in the bloody door.
See, that's
Um,
nice. That's nice.
yeah, I liked the attention, but didn't know what to do with it. And so I had a lot of friends in the clubs that were escorts as well, and drag queens and nightclub managers and drug dealers. Like you name it, I've done it, touched it, fucked it, licked it, and lived to tell the tale. But at that moment, I had a lot of friends that were escorts and they were telling me what they did. And I was like, oh, I really don't understand my sexuality that well at the time, and maybe I'll be able to learn more about myself and what it means to be a gay guy through other people. So I had no filter, and so I kind of just threw myself into the escorting ring and went home with guys. Originally, it was just for fun. I never really knew what to do when it came to the exchange of money, and so
Okay.
I was more of the I'll go home with them, and if they open their wallet and throw me some money, then that's great. If they don't, then at least I had a good time. And it wasn't
Yeah.
that far from the club, so I'll just, hightail it back to the club I was at. And, maybe it'll happen again. But my sex drive then was overdrive. So I really remember diving into the club scene really quickly and finding my way through. But then my friends hooked me up on some app at the time, which was new to me, which was Grinder, and
Okay.
that's kind of where my escorting career really took off a bit because I was able to message guys directly and they would message me. And I'd be in a club and I would use it like a navigation tool, like a nav man. So it's like,
Yeah.
this guy is only a couple of meters away from me. So he's either upstairs in the cocktail bar or he's on the same level as me watching this crappy drag show in the bar. So I decided, to use that app to kind of navigate my way through who I was comfortable sleeping with. And at the same time, they're all different. So every single person I got with was either a lawyer or a magistrate or a CEO of some company or an airline owner.
Okay.
So I got all the really wealthy clientele, uh, just because I was young, and at the time, everyone after a few clients, they still thought I was naive. So I was able to experience a lot more really quickly because I was just like, yeah, fuck it, let's do whatever. You can pour hot wax on me, you can throw some nipple clamps on me. What's a spreader bar? Oh, sounding, yeah, let's give that a go. I had no filter, so I pretty much did everything and anything at the time. And if I didn't like it, I didn't do it again.
Okay.
But the first time I had money exchange hands was like a $500 payment. And it's like, you've been here all day. Here's some cash, and like you can make a career out of this. And I'm like, oh, I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, well, I've already done this a few times. But this guy then paid me, and that was probably about the fifth or sixth guy I hooked up with at a club, and it kind of just went from there. So I learned by doing, and then my escort mates in the clubs, we used to swap stories about the clients we got with and how many clients have you got with. Oh, I've got one with 8. What about you? Oh, 5. It's like, oh, okay, we've got another 4 hours. Let's see if you see who beats who. How many people they I hook up with tonight. So we used to make a game out of it, and that's kind of how I kind of maintained my industry connections earlier on, and learnt through the experiences of other workers. But initially it was just watching Queer as Folk going, oh, okay, that's what a sex worker is. They go around clubs, boys take them home, and then when they're done, they go back to the club and keep dancing. That was kind of my mentality around it. But I never really understood the money part of it and until it really got going.
I always like to ask my guests, do you feel like at the beginning there was ever a waiver period where like a learning curve to where you like weren't good? Does that ever happen?
Yeah, there was. I didn't really know what I was doing with clients. So initially, I would have these experiences where they're like, "Oh, so what are you into?" I'm like, "I actually have no idea." So I started learning very easily that the best way around that was just to tell the client that you've got me for the hour, do whatever you want.
Okay,
Again, that was
yeah.
probably not the smartest move because telling them that they could do whatever they want really opened up everything that could have been possible. But at the same time, it was a lot of fun because I was doing things that were new and I had never experienced before. But mainly, the main reason why I said, "Oh yeah, do whatever," is because I didn't really know what to do. So I
Yeah.
think that moment of like a waiver period where I wasn't good at it, I was kind of like, the only way I'm going to know what people want is by just going with the flow and seeing what happens. And that's kind of why, like I touched on before, it was easier for me to go and do it once and then go, okay, I don't want to do that again because that was
Yeah.
either fucking scary or it hurt too much or just wasn't for me. So yeah, the waiver period for me was trial and error. And
Yeah.
there was another moment for me where I had to really reflect on the career as itself and go, is this something I want to keep doing? Because at the time, my parents didn't know what I was doing, and they didn't find out till at least probably 80% the way through my career before I actually said anything. So,
Okay.
about 8 years in, they found out, but I wasn't telling them at the start. I was going clubbing and going home on a Monday morning, hungover from partying too much, and then repeating the wheel Friday to Sunday and just going, oh, I stayed at a mate's.
Oh
so,
yeah, yeah.
so they had no idea. And I think the waiver period there for me was where I was questioning, do I keep doing this? Am I enjoying myself? Is it safe? I did question those things because I wasn't entirely sure what would come of it and what that meant for me socially because I was a bit of an outcast in primary and high school. I was always that arty guy that no one really wanted to know because I wasn't into sports and had a lot of
Oh
friends that
yeah.
were girls. And that was when I didn't really know what it meant to be gay and whether I was or not. And so I kind of went from that into clubs where people wanted to know me. But I was like, do I want people to only know me as the sex worker or how do I navigate this? So there was a period where I was like, do I just keep doing this and meet people through the clubs and through couples that wanted to book me for threesomes and group parties and stuff? Or do I want to not do this and just, hang around the drag queens and stuff and just have a more
Yeah.
social experience? So
That makes sense.
yeah, it was a bit of a touch and go moment where I kind of stopped and started and then went away for a couple of weeks just to kind of refresh my brain and then go back and ask questions of people that owned sex on premise venues and brothels and other escorts that have been doing it for years to really get an idea of how they navigated it because I didn't want to be one of those ones that fall too hard into the industry and don't know how to separate who they are from what they do for work. And I find a lot of workers make that mistake. They start in the industry and then they work for a while, like a period of time, maybe 3 to 4 months, and then if they can't work out how to be Jett in their career, so Jet Black in their escort career, and then separate that away from Braden Reese, who I am every other day, it's really interesting that when I've seen escorts start a career in the industry and not work out how to switch on the persona for work and switch on who they are every day in their everyday life, that they end up, falling into problematic situations, whether that's addictions or assault and things like that. And then it starts to get really dark. And so for me, I was worried about all that sort of stuff. And I've gone through some of that stuff. Uh,
Yeah.
but, when I reflect on it now, I when a waiver period never really crossed my mind, but I did ask questions and I was unsure early on. So, Yeah.
Were the other people that you met through the way sex workers? Were they always willing to kind of like help with any advice? And I know you said you kind of swapped stories. Were
Yeah.
those people that you could lean on in the industry?
Yeah, they were. So a lot of like the nights that I would go out and party and then have clients that booked me from clubs and then I'd go home with them and then sometimes get stuck in the city, whether or not that meant that I'd go home on a night rider and then catch a 4 hour bus all the way back home rather than a 40-minute train trip.
Wow.
I used to stick around the club owners' houses and their apartments in Surrey Hills, which is like the gay strip of Sydney. So Oxford
Okay.
Street, where the Mardi Gras parade is, and basically that would be the street I would work on. But then if I ever got stuck or if I had a negative experience with a client, then I was able to make a phone call or I had keys to a nightclub manager's house or their apartment. I'd be able to just dive right in and crash on the couch and then go home the next day. So I had a lot of support, which is unusual because when I mention these sort of experiences I've had in the escorting profession, a lot of escorts say that they don't have the same. And
Okay.
it's interesting because it's like kind of like, oh, I just got lucky that I was, just this young kid on the block, and everyone's like, oh, cool, we can corrupt the fuck out of him because he's new. But,
and
but at the
it
same time,
worked.
I kind of held on to those contacts really strongly because I didn't really have a big social vibe going on outside of work. So I maintained those relationships. And if that meant sleeping with them every weekend or every second day, then I did because I didn't want to lose what I thought was a friendship. So I had a lot of support from brothel managers and nightclub managers that knew of me because they allowed me to work in their businesses. And then the sex workers I worked with that we used to swap advice with, next time you jerk him off, make sure you hold his cock like this, or try not making out with them because if you get a cold sore, then you have to wear Sevirax and it takes a while to go down, and then it looks like you got herpes, and then no one's going to fucking touch you. So
Yeah.
a lot of the escorts used to give me tips on what to and what not to do. Um, but yeah, there was a lot of support for me early on because I think the sex workers I was friends with were really excited to know that someone was really open minded to exploring the industry and not judging it. And
Yeah.
within the queer community, there's a lot of judgment because we're sassy bitches. So it's kind of where the drag side comes in. But I had a lot of support from just advice to people that were willing to look after me when I had a shit night, to even moments where I was stupid and had dabbled in the drug side of the industry. Or, I wouldn't say it's part of the industry, but it's definitely in there.
Just a part of life. Everyone's
And
doing
I dabbled with
drugs.
that. And I remember this drag queen that knew me really well picked me up off the side of the road because I had just passed out. And she took me home and cooked me breakfast and looked after me. And I was like, I have no idea what happened that night. She goes, don't worry, I took you home. Like, I had some really close calls early on in my career, but I had a lot of support. Um, which I'm so thankful for because I think there's a couple moments there, like just on that one alone, that I could have been dead. So,
Yeah.
um,
I mean, I seen a horror movie that happened in Australia one time, and
yeah,
I mean, you might not have made it back home.
I really don't think so. I think if I had not been lucky to meet a lot of people really quickly and not give a fuck about handing my number out to everybody. Like, even to this day, I have a new phone number, but my phone has synced all the contacts. There's at least over 5,500 people in my phone.
Oh my god.
I couldn't fucking tell you who they are. All I know is that in the notes I've got down drag queen from this bar, or this drag
Oh,
queen
okay,
cooks me
sweet.
breakfast. So I've got notes on everybody. So if I open my phone, I can go, oh, Grinder. Okay, so clearly that was someone I met on Grinder. But yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, I had a lot of support, and just talking about it now reminds me of a lot of those experiences that were a little bit touch and go for me. So
Yeah. I know you mentioned like kind of you started out in the clubs and then you kind of like transitioned to grinder.
mm.
Is does male escorting differ in how clientele is like I guess reaches out to you compared to like female escorting? Because I know like I'll see in the U.S. there's a lot of like ad like I guess everyone's posting ads, but I've
Yeah.
interviewed several people and it's kind of like it seems to be a different process for male escorts and female escorts. Does that differ in Australia?
Yeah, it's on par with exactly the same experience I've had. So when I started 10 years ago in the sex industry as an escort, I noticed that there wasn't many places to advertise, and people would either advertise on like directories or forums where you can go on the same directory and buy a barbecue, or
Yeah,
hire
yeah,
someone to mow your lawn. Um, not just grouse someone out. Like, I had no idea that there were other places to advertise, and there certainly wasn't when I started out. So a lot of escorts would dive onto mainstream directories or through apps, and but again, even apps like Grinder, Hornet, Tinder, which is like the straight version of the app, and then you've got other apps like Bender and Blender and all these other ones that came out and jacked. Like, I've been on them all. Because I used to find clients on them, but eventually these apps cracked down on escorts and were like, "Yep, you can't be on these apps and selling sex because that's just against our rules." And so at the time, like, like anyone that's smart enough, you just delete the account and start again. But they eventually cracked onto that too. So
yeah.
uh,
They know what they know what they're doing.
yeah, eventually they caught on. Um, but word of mouth worked well for me, and when I explain that to people, or other escorts, even female escorts, they don't get it, and it's like, maybe it's not the same for you. And from asking them, I know it's definitely not. But for me, I was able to get clients by word of mouth. Like, in the gay community, everyone kind of talks to each other, and it's a small world if you fall into certain parts of it. So a couple would talk to another couple, or a single guy would talk to a couple that was friends, and they'd mention that they hooked up with a guy that did XYZ, and they're like, "Oh, I want to try all that too. Who is it?" And then my number would get passed around. So I kind of
Okay.
got clients by referral and word of mouth, and I know a lot of female escorts don't experience the same thing, whereas they have to advertise on Backpage and other directories out there, like Escorts and Babes, and there's a lot of them.
Oh
Um,
yeah, there's lots of websites.
I could rattle them off, but there's so many escort directories out there. Um, and I know that they have to try a lot harder. In saying that, though, Australia and Europe, and now more so with America, with the introduction of this application, now there's also a website called RentMen. It's been around for several years now, but it allows gay escorts, straight escorts, bi escorts that are all male to advertise sex work services on that site. So rather than an escort site that has females on it, there's now sites out there for male escorts.
Solely men.
And yeah, and it never used to be a big thing. There were always online dating sites where escorts used to advertise, like Aussie Men, and men.com. Like, there were a whole bunch of, dating sites that we would advertise on, but even then you weren't really allowed to do it. So I know that female escorts struggle, transgender escorts even struggle trying to find places to advertise, because not many people will go online and specifically search for a transgender escort. And then with female escorts, there's so much competition that everyone's price
Yeah.
competing. So there's like, if I charge $5 less, they'll book me. It's just uh it's interesting that within the gay male community, the way that escorts can advertise within this community and this sector of the adult industry, it's very different to
Yeah.
female, and then other male escorts that don't really identify with the queer community, because we've got apps where we're very a sex driven community, which is why we've got apps like Grinder and Hornet that are pretty much jump on there, find a fuck and go. It's very rare that these apps are used specifically to make friends or network. And
Do people date off Grinder? Just like dating too?
you can, but at the same point in time, a lot of people, when you jump on there and have conversations and you're like trying to meet other people for friendship, when you are in a relationship, people will tend to assume that that means, oh, you want an orgy, or you want group sex, or threesomes and stuff. It's very like even if you use the word friend, people will still go, friend, hey. They're like,
See, what if I'm just trying to be friends?
I just want some
Don't
friends
worry.
with fucking coronavirus and everything's closed. And when everything reopens, I'd like to know there's somebody out there that I can go and have a fucking cocktail with. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting that these apps, most people are on them for the quick fuck scenario as opposed to getting to know people. And it's kind of unfortunate in a way because the way that like social media and digital media is taking off in the adult industry and then just within society in general, that when people go to a club, rather than talk to people at a bar, they'll be on their phone and they'll
Oh yeah.
be, scrolling through Tinder or Grindr or Facebook, and they'd rather message people from the app than go and shake their hand and go, "Hey, how you going? You're hot," or "Hey, babe, you're cute. My name's blah blah blah." Like rather than do an in person introduction, they'd rather hide behind an app.
Yeah, I think as technology increases and we're more dependent on our phones, I think that people's social skills are going to decline to where nobody wants to fucking in the future. I don't think people will converse as much because you can just you can just look at your phone and can get joy from that, and you don't really need to even put yourself out there to actually talk to somebody. It's crazy.
Yeah,
We'll see what
or
happens.
then you've got people that just start living with the acronyms. So rather than laughing, we just write "lol,"
Yeah,
and
I
you're
want to
like,
hear some fucking laughs.
I've heard people walk down the street and in clubs just say "lol."
Jesus,
And hear a joke
no.
and go "lol" or ruffle, and I'm like, are you going to laugh or are you being sarcastic?
Obviously, they're being so. You gotta be rolling on the floor if you're gonna say you can't say raffle. You gotta really be on the ground acting that out. And then they're
I
like,
totally
"Wow,
agree. Yeah,
raffle."
it's interesting that social media and that quick text is starting to. It's not starting to. It has. It's fucked up
Yeah,
the way people socialize.
yeah,
But at the same time, it was helpful for me as a sex worker, and I know a lot of sex workers still today try and use apps to find clients because it's quicker. And in most cases, these apps are free as opposed to advertising on directories that charge a lot of money. And if you're starting out, it's very rare that you have enough money to cover a week's worth of advertising to get the clients you want on these sort of sites. Where if you're earning 300 to 400 an hour as a sex worker, but it's costing you 300 to 400 a week to advertise, and you're new to the
yeah.
industry, there goes one client, and you may only get one client on you, and when you're starting out because you're a little bit
That's
dubious.
a lot of money.
Yeah,
300 to 400 a week advertising. That's crazy.
some sites are really dear, and it's a matter of. I think the best advice I can give any escort out there that may be listening to this podcast is don't fall for the bullshit that every directory has different fucking clients, because the same people that went on the directory you're not on are looking on the directory that you are on.
Yeah,
And I always tell escorts today that it's better to be in more places than one when you
yeah,
advertise, because putting all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, when it comes to advertising as a sex worker is a really stupid idea. And going for the most shiniest and loudest escort directory online does not necessarily mean that people that will book you are actually located near you. A lot of the visitors to that website may be from overseas. They could be from areas nowhere near you, or even still could be fake traffic. So I always tell escorts to be very mindful that when you advertise online, make sure you're advertising on more directories and put a few dollars at each one so you've got promoted posts, but don't rely on one directory just because it looks good. Because that's what they wanted to do. The directories want you to go, oh, this one's pretty and this is obviously going to be taken more seriously. But in natural fact, most people like a boring, blank website where they can just click on there, see some photos, and ring someone. That's pretty much all they're looking
yeah.
for. It doesn't
Literally.
need the bells and whistles to make people go on one site versus another. So here's some tips for you, ladies and gents out there. Be very mindful of your advertising, because there are directories out there that will charge a fortune and get you nothing, and then there are free ones out there that you'd be surprised. Even if you try it, get a phone, put the number out there, and see if the same person fucking contacts you, and you'll be
Yeah,
surprised that most do. You'll get the
yeah.
same people on one site versus another.
You exited. You're no longer escorting, right?
Currently on hiatus.
Okay.
Which is good. It's given me, oh, even with coronavirus going on, it's not like a sex worker can work anyway. Or if you do, you're really flipping a coin every time you go out there. There's no chance that you're not going to get sick or you will. So at this stage, I've been on hiatus, but at the same time, I'm still working in the casting component and recruitment side of it for brothels and for porn studios. So I'm still involved in the
Okay.
industry and marketing and advertising and PR, but personally, as a sex worker, even with coronavirus going on, I may not dive back into the industry as a sex worker until mid next year when things are
Okay.
a little bit more
I mean,
safer for everybody.
I def. Coronavirus is out here. It's Tell me how have you been affected by we talked about it a little bit earlier before this, but how have you been affected by like COVID?
COVID's crazy. It's when people asked me what industry are you in, and I'm like, oh, I do marketing and public relations for the sex industry. They're like, oh, that industry will never be tapped by anything. Like you're in an industry where you can fly your own flag and help an industry without restriction and or without any impact. And at the time, this is like 2 years ago, I had this conversation with someone. I'm like, yeah, right, you are right. Nothing's ever going to shake this industry other than mainstream's appropriate misconceptions of our industry and judging us for what they think we are, not because of their true understanding of workers and businesses in this industry. But I was very surprised that when coronavirus hit, it fucked everybody up. Like no one saw that one coming. And the adult
Nope.
industry globally has been really impacted. In saying that, a lot of smart businesses have created digital opportunities. So strip clubs are now doing virtual strip shows, and escorts are now going back into what I thought was a dead industry. They're now going into phone sex. So that's
Okay,
making
yeah.
making a comeback,
It's
so to
coming
speak.
back.
It's
I
coming
interviewed
back.
somebody
Yeah.
the other I interviewed someone the other day who does phone sex. It's popping.
It's popping again now because you can't really meet. Well, you can, but it's a risk. Meet with clients in person, and so this online use of media, even with the explosion of OnlyFans and ManyVids for sex workers, because they can't get the clients directly, they're now moving online. But then the negative side of this coronavirus in Australia, New Zealand, and around the world, we've seen so many brothels close and escorts leave the industry and get jobs at Costco or Aldi. And it's interesting to see a lot of people leave the industry because of this uncertainty, but at the same time, there's businesses that are really struggling financially to keep themselves afloat, just like everybody else. So it's not like I'm,
Yeah.
going, oh, boo hoo, poor adult industry, because everyone's fucked right now because and not the way that we want to be. No one had a choice with this virus, but it's interesting to see the adult industry have to think outside the square to create these new opportunities because what they did before they can't do. And we never thought that this would affect the industry the way it has. In Australia, we've got a little bit of support from the government, where finance is coming in for brothels and people that were
Okay.
people that were employed or considered full-time employed were given opportunities to have what they call a job keeper payment. So basically that means that the government will fund people almost their full salary per fortnight with a payment plan arrangement, so that way everyone can kind of stay afloat. But that's now starting
Okay.
to wind down because it's gone on for so long. The government's like, yeah, we're going to, let's just focus on the people that are working, not the people that aren't or have lost their job, which is pretty fucked up.
That's like that really that's like
It's
doesn't make
isn't it?
sense.
It doesn't make sense, does it? And I totally understand. I understand two things about it. I understand the government's trying to help people that are in work to stay in work, but at the same time, why give the people that are already working more money? The people that are fucked right now are the ones that are unemployed, and the people that, especially like peers of mine in the adult industry, if they've only ever worked in the adult industry and they have no other skill set, they're fucked because they're fucked the most because they have no skill set to apply to an industry. Like, they may be good with people, and that's a great skill to have as a sex worker, but because they have no pieces of paper, like, they can't just go and put a resume together and jump into a career in accounting or marketing or advertising or hospitality as a hotel manager or something. Like, it's unfortunate that the government's kind of pulling away from people that aren't working to kind of put the pressure on them to find a job. But unfortunately, in states like Melbourne, Australia, where I currently live, our state particularly is closed off from everybody else around the country. So every state's shut to Melbourne, and we can't fly interstate. There are no jobs currently going because, unfortunately, like we talked about briefly, Tank, we're closed for now 6 weeks. Another 6 weeks of what they call stage 4, which is basically
God.
America's version of phase 2. We can only do 2 hours of physical activity outside a day. We've got restrictions between freaking 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. We have to be in the house. If we step outside and we get busted by cops, there's a $1,600 fine. It's really restrictive, and this has been going on now for, originally it was, we had stage 4 or phase 2 restrictions here in Australia, just in Melbourne, for a period of 5 weeks. That got extended, and now it's going all the way to December, and we're in
Oh,
September.
God.
Like, it's kind of like, the industry's really suffering in Melbourne, whereas we look to our other states around Australia. Queensland's got their strip clubs back open again, and escorts are starting to work in different states, and nightclubs are back open in Sydney. And I'm like, fuck, I wish I was back in Sydney right now because
God.
I really miss the clubbing environment, and I fucking need a holiday from this house arrest situation that's going on. But at the same time, the good thing that'll come out of this, which I hope happens, is that in our industry, there's a lot of fucking assholes that just need to get out of the industry, and that whether that's business owners or other workers that cause shit for other workers, or businesses that cause shit for other businesses, and just really don't respect our industry, even though they're part of it. The silver lining to the coronavirus pandemic is that I kind of hope that all these businesses go broke, so that way nicer people come in and change the way the industry relates to each other, and that people that need to be knocked off their pedestal actually start relating to each other better, and that's building relationships with the industry, and start thinking outside themselves a little bit more. And I've already seen this happen in different countries and with some of my clients, where they're now building relationships with people in the industry more positively than what they've done before, because, like they say in the press, we're all in this together. um, it's, I mean, how many times can you hear that on the TV? The new normal and the all in this together shit. But it's actually quite true. And now I'm seeing this push into the adult sector. It's exciting because it means we'll have new performers, we'll have new workers, we'll have new business owners with amazing ideas. And even some of the current businesses and entertainers will come up with amazing ways to make our
Yeah.
industry more exciting. So that's the
Yeah.
silver lining to the pandemic at the moment. If you put all the deaths and the scary shit aside, the silver lining for our industry is positive change and growth, because our industry is not going to go anywhere. It's just on a temporary pause while all the smarty pants in our industry start thinking up amazing ways to do things differently.
Yeah.
And my hope here is that all of the cowboys in our industry, whether or not that's a term that gets used overseas a lot, or internationally, but I'm hoping that all the cowboys of our industry, or the cowgirls of our industry, which are the ones that are kind of like the old guard of the industry, that are known for causing issues that piss everybody off, that they all kind of take a step back and let new people in, because that's
Yeah.
the only way our industry is going to kind of change for the better, especially after the pandemic's over. So I'm excited because I can already see these changes taking place. It's just unfortunate it's taken a pandemic to cause it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the downside to it, is that it's taken something so awful to happen worldwide for every industry to actually go, holy fuck, how do I get out of this? And
For sure. Yeah.
how do we do things differently? So yeah, who knows what the adult industry has in store for us around the world, but all I know is that the people that are doing well and the businesses that are doing well and the porn stars and escorts that are doing well are going to do even better at the end of the pandemic. And we've got
For sure.
new people coming in, which makes it even more exciting. So,
Fuck yeah. In 2018, you founded Sweet Release Agency, correct?
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about Sweet Release. We haven't talked about it yet.
Yeah, so Sweet Release is an adult industry marketing and public relations agency that I started 2018. God, it was 2018, wasn't it? It feels longer. It's just I think in the adult industry, it feels like every day is a week. Uh, so we feel a lot older on the inside, but essentially, Sweet Release is adult industry marketing, public relations for adult businesses, sex workers, porn stars, and everything in between. And
Okay.
the idea originally came from the fact that when I was working as a sex worker, no one knew where to advertise and were coming to me for help. And I already had a background in marketing, advertising, and PR. I was studying that at university and working privately with different agencies around Australia. And no one really wanted to help our industry. And I thought, this is bullshit. I see this as a product, I see it as a service. I don't see this as anything else but a problem, but as a marketer or a publicist, I can solve because I can look at the problem, identify it, understand it, and then come up with something new or invigorating that will change this problem into a solved situation for a business or an entertainer that can get more bookings, more sales, more customers, whatever it might be. And so I originally helped about 40 mates of mine that were sex workers, massage therapists, brothel owners, sex on premise, like pretty much all the people that I'd met early on in my
Okay.
escort career. Uh, and it worked. And I believe what helped me be able to help them was the fact that I understood the industry because I lived it and I breathed it. And I had a lot of friends and contacts in the industry that would tell me everything going on, that I was able to go, okay, well, what we would do to sell a car with a chicken lingerie, we can't really do that with another chicken lingerie for a chicken lingerie. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't, you can't have a girl slime all over another girl in lingerie and go, hey, look at her titties, and isn't she sexy? Call her now. Like that's not going to work. Well, you can put her on a car with a couple of sponges and some soap, and people are like, yeah, I'm going to buy that car. Um, but you can't really sell the fantasy as much in the adult industry the same way. And so it's really interesting that when I started changing the way marketing and advertising works for the sex industry and going, okay, well, we can't sell sex with sex, but we can sell the experience, we can sell the personality, we can sell the brand. That is when things changed. And so what I originally had as 40 mates of mine soon turned into over 2,500 clients worldwide because word had spread so quickly amongst the industry that people wanted to know what I was doing as a publicist. And so what was originally a one-man show with an ex-partner that is no longer part of the picture turned into a family business where everyone at Sweet Release is related to me, apart from 860, or now I think it's 840 contractors around the world that are photographers and videographers, where we physically cannot get to those countries to do the shoots, which I'd love to be able to do.
Yeah.
We now help, all 8 of us at Sweet Release as a family, now help businesses and entertainers around the world with their marketing, with their publicity, with their advertising, to get more bookings, to get more subscribers, to get more sales. It's refreshing. I'd worked in marketing and advertising with mainstream companies for so long that took the piss out of our industry or just disrespected it, that when I started helping an industry I loved and connect with personally, it made a lot more sense to me. And I felt more appreciated and valued as a marketer and as a publicist, and being able to help people in this industry succeed and be able to help them with that. It's really, it's fucking awesome. It makes me feel amazing
Yeah.
that I can actually use my skills and use my expertise to help an industry that really needs it, because not many people
Fuck it.
respect this industry. They use it, but they don't want to talk about it. So,
Yeah. Since sex work laws vary like country to country, do you have to like navigate laws in terms of advertising at all, or does that affect your company?
All the fucking time. And it's what's crazy about it is that every state, every country has different laws, but then they go and fucking change them, and
Oh,
they're always changing. Like it's it's one of those issues that we have to face head on every day almost, even with things as far as not just laws, but also restrictions when it comes to search engines. When you advertise your sex worker career in one country or one city, you can't say what you do as a sex worker. So, for example,
yeah,
in some states in Australia and New Zealand, you can't actually say, I will do, anal, I will suck your cock, I'll swallow, you can do COB, all this stuff, right? You can't actually mention any of it. You can say that you're a companion, but if you start going into detail, that's where you get your ass kicked by cops and get fined. Whereas in other locations around the world, you can write whatever the fuck you want, just like Twitter.
yeah,
So it's it's really interesting to navigate. We generally find issues as an agency that sometimes we don't see everything, and then we hear about it, and then we're like, okay, fuck, we need to rework this and rewire this really quickly.
yeah.
And we do. We have moments where we have to do things at the last minute, and that's just because laws will come out while we're halfway through creating a PR release, or we're working on someone's website, that something comes out, and then we have to go through all of our clients' websites and make the same
Oh
changes.
God.
So it's new stuff comes out all the time, and then we'll have clients come back to us and go, okay, can you change this on our website? Or I need new photos because I can't have my tits out anymore because this is restricted. And yeah, it makes it really challenging, especially for the sex worker and adult film star sector of the adult industry, because everything's fucking changing all the time. So
Yeah, I feel like that'd be so much work. So Sweet Release, you also created the X Awards, which is basically like the avian version, the avian awards of Australia. Tell me about that a little bit.
yeah, so pretty much X Awards Australia is my take on XBiz, AVNs, and Why Not. So Why Not's your Cam Awards, and then you've got XBiz, which is your adult film and adult business awards. Then you've got your AVNs, which is all about porn. And I love what these awards shows do in the States, but what I couldn't find in Australia was something of the same fucking like equal par to those award shows. We have an award show in Australia, but it's not like, not talking about our one, but there is other award shows here in Australia that support the industry, but some have given up, some have stopped, some don't really know how to fucking operate. And then you've got other award shows here that kind of thrive on nepotism, and I have a big issue with that.
Oh, okay.
And that's because I believe that people in the industry earn their stripes, and every sex worker would know what I'm saying by this is that you work your ass off in the industry mentally and physically to understand who you are and what you want to do with your clients, make them happy and keep them loyal, right? And it's a struggle, and sex work is a fucking job, and it's really hard. Now, bums on seats to an award show doesn't really guarantee that you should win a trophy, and in some awards programs it works that way, but I
Oh
don't
shit.
allow X Awards to work that way.
Okay.
So X Awards is very fair and very regulated, and just similar to what I hear about XBiz and AVNs and how regulated those programs are, which is amazing. Industry votes for performers, performers vote for performers, performers can nominate themselves, and you get put into the correct categories based on your career, and that's fucking awesome. In Australia, we're doing the same thing with X Awards. So X Awards, we get every single business and entertainer to either self-nominate or be nominated by the general public. We then contact every single nominee, and every nominee is then required to fill out this online questionnaire that ask them
Okay.
about their career, their success stories, some of their failures, what makes them different in the marketplace, why they deserve to win. And then we ask a couple of other questions to help us work out which categories they're best to be placed in. And then we go
Okay.
through all of the information. This year we had 708 people enter the awards program. And for us, that was huge because our first year, last year, we had 250. So
Oh
in our
wow,
second
that's
year, it's
amazing.
tripled.
Yeah.
And so from there, we went through everyone's submission and read everything, and then we looked into everything they said they had done to make sure they actually had. And that kind of meant that we had to disqualify about 300 people because they lied in their application. But it keeps it fair and regulated. And then we announce the finalists. The finalists go on the website, and then we open it up to a public vote. So Australia and New Zealand are allowed to vote for each other across these two countries. And it makes it more inclusive because people that book sex workers or people that watch entertainers or know of people in the industry can support their peers. And what the awards program also does is it only allows one vote per person. So you can't vote more than once. It's kept that way for a reason. So that way, just because someone votes for you 3 times a day doesn't really mean you deserve to win because that person already voted for you once. So repeat
Yeah,
votes.
yeah.
Never really understood that part. So we make sure it's one vote per person, per awards category, per entertainer. And if someone's in more categories and that person goes, oh, fuck, I forgot to vote, well, they can vote for that person again. And as long as they don't click the other categories that they're already in and voted for, it'll count that additional vote. And then we opened it worldwide. First time ever in the time that we've run X Awards, we decided to make it international voting for 2020. And that's
Oh shit.
primarily because of COVID. Like, it kind of encouraged me to go, look, you know what? Last year we had this lockdown to just Australia and New Zealand. This year, let's open it up because it's people had got to be people overseas that support our industry in Australia and New Zealand, even though we might be small. And it was very surprising to see that when we opened our international voting, what was a couple thousand votes skyrocketed to nearly 19,000 votes around the world in just a month. Just
Wow,
by
that's
opening
amazing.
voting internationally. And the spread of votes is quite different to what I've seen before with our first year's program. We had mainly in Australia and New Zealand, it was almost like an 80-20 split with New Zealand and Australia. And now when we've opened it up to the world, there's like a 65% US vote for the Australian
Oh
adult
wow.
entertainment industry. And then the rest is Australia.
I
And so
think we like the accent. That's
I
what it
think you like
is.
the accent, and it's interesting. It's really interesting to see that even though an industry for Australia and New Zealand might be smaller, the US market really does support our industry. And so the other cool thing about it is you can really bring the industry together more when you open it worldwide. So what that means is that we've managed to get sponsors on board from around the world. Last year we
Oh
had
nice.
$80,000 in prizes, which were photo shoots and directory listings and all that sort of stuff. Now we've actually got sponsors such as Naked News, ASN Lifestyle Magazine, all pitching in public relations and advertising opportunities for businesses and adult performers that
That's
are part
awesome.
of the awards this year.
That's great.
So this year we've got over $350,000 in prizes to give away to 40 award categories because we opened up the international voting and we've invited the international industry in. So it's made the awards
Is
program bigger than what I
is
anticipated.
is there like a top award, like essentially like the equivalency of like best actor, best actress at the Oscars? Is there a top award for like somebody maybe?
Yeah, so we've got 2 award categories that we introduced this year that are particularly for that, and so we wanted to get the industry to vote for people in the industry, not just rely on a public vote. So we rolled out alpha male, alpha female this year. So what that encourages is a public vote for people to put themselves in. So finalists were able to nominate themselves into these categories, and then we then get the industry to vote for who they think deserves to win those categories, male or female ambassadors for the industry. And
I like I like how you made it that the alpha male and alpha female have to nominate themselves. I like that. An
um,
alpha male would do that shit.
yeah, it's like, we know they're confident and, we kind of figured that people would nominate themselves, but we did nominate people that were finalists into those categories as well. Because I was like, some people don't really know that their achievements or what they've contributed to the industry is worth recognizing. Like, some people have been in the industry for 20, 30 years and have turned the careers around of so many performers, but have never been recognized for it. And then you have people that start businesses and been in the industry for 50 years as a family business and not once received an award or
Yeah.
recognition for what they've done for the industry as a whole. Like, even having products reintroduced to the market purely because the government said no. I've got businesses involved in X Awards this year that have shared their story where they've challenged the government and they've challenged local council and they've challenged courtrooms and had products brought back to Australia because, purely out of ignorance, these products were blocked or banned, or businesses were, misappropriated by the press, and they've challenged the press and won. And these stories should be out there and they should be heard. And that's primarily what X Awards is about, is telling stories of amazing businesses and entertainers in our industry so that the rest of the world can see what the fuck the industry is really about, rather than doing what I did, which was watch a series on TV and go, oh, that's what it means to be an escort.
Yeah. Just spreading the good news.
That's the plan. That's the whole mission behind it, and definitely bringing the adult industry that step closer from Australia and New Zealand, the adult industry here, closer to the industry around the world. And
We're,
only can that be done if we talk and network with each other, which is what the X Awards is.
I think so. I think it can happen.
I hope so. It's our second year running. It's getting bigger every year, and it's exciting to see. It's unfortunate that coronavirus impacted X Awards this year, which means our awards night's been moved to February of next year. But that just means we've got two parties next year, and the voting is extended, and it gives people more time to focus on their careers, get the votes coming in for themselves, and then when we celebrate the 2020 X Awards in 2021, we'll hopefully have a winner announced in February. And then in November of 2021, we have our 2021 awards program and awards
Fuck
night.
yeah.
So two parties next year, which I think the industry really, really well deserves after what's been a real interesting
For
year.
sure.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself? Where do you see Sweet Release in the future?
Definitely keeping on par with trends in the industry. Like, what we're doing now for businesses and entertainers, I never really thought we would be doing 2 years ago. Like, where we are today, I thought that would have taken years to get here, let alone did I ever think that my career would have taken a turn and completely dive into the adult sector. So it's really exciting to go from just helping a few friends to now helping the world. It's a little bit intimidating when you say it out loud, but it's a lot of excitement and a lot of change in the industry right now, that the industry is uncertain, like, in a good way. So for me, I think it means that as a company, we'll be going more into the digital side of things, definitely, and definitely focusing on building relationships with people out there that talk about the industry and support the industry around the world, to start helping the industry everywhere around the world. So rather than just, I think, bringing people together in our industry makes a lot more sense than working in silos, like I touched on earlier. It makes, to me, it's made a lot more sense to build relationships with the industry than it has been to just work on our own as an agency. And so inviting podcasters in, just like yourself, to have conversations like these, and to talk to editors like ASN Magazine, Michael from there, who's been so supportive of X Awards and with Sweet Release with us. And what our mission is to bring the industry into the spotlight rather than keeping it, buried in the back corner of the red light district. And so everyone can understand the industry for what it is and not for what they think it is what our mission is. And I hope that continues. But at this stage, we are looking potentially to start our own association, and we do have relationships with an incredible company called the Adult Industry Association, based in Barbados. And, they're a growing platform, and they support adult workers and adult businesses and startups that want to work with our industry. So it's really exciting to know that there are companies out there and people out there that want to advocate for the best interest of our industry. And so with Sweet Release into the future, I'm going to make it my mission to make sure I get to find all these people. And when the fucking borders open and planes are allowed to fly out of the country, I want to definitely get around the world and meet everybody and start
Fuck yeah.
building those relationships more directly so we can work out ways to support the industry post coronavirus and into the future, because like I said, our industry is not going anywhere. Everybody eats, everybody sleeps, everybody fucks. And the industries that aren't going anywhere is anyone that produces food, anybody that needs to sleep in a hotel, and anybody that needs a good route. Like, it's just...
Everybody sleeps, everybody eats, everybody fucks. That is a beautiful title of this episode. I like
Yeah.
that.
And, it's an exciting time for the industry, and wherever the industry goes, we'll be sure to follow and help guide people make the best decisions for their businesses and careers. And if that's helping people get into porn with the right studios and navigating which agencies are the best ones to work with versus ones that you kind of jump on and they don't do anything with you and you're like, what the fuck? Through to directories and advertising sex workers to make sure that they don't put all their eggs in one basket, through to taking retailers up to their next level to make sure they make more sales is ideally what we want to do. And we want to chip away at that misconception that's out there by the media that our industry is, something to not embrace, because my hope through Sweet Release and X Awards is that we will be able to chip away at this to the point where we have one umbrella for every industry, and that the conversation about sex is more open, and that sex positivity and inclusivity can be something that's more embraced around the world, not something that's taboo. So that's our focus. That took a long while for me to work out where we're going to go in the future in my head, but that's
that was nice.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, Jett. I appreciate you coming on the podcast. This has been good.
It's been good talking with you. It's really cool to know that there are people out there just like yourself, Tank, that support our industry. It's good to see.
Oh, doing my best. Before we get out of here, do you want to plug any social media at all for the people out there?
Yeah, sure. So people can find us pretty much everywhere. Sweet Release Agency can be found on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Just look for Sweet Release Agency. For X Awards Australia, which is our awards program, you can check us out on Instagram and you'll see a recent post where we tell people that it's been rescheduled. But please do get your votes in. Doesn't matter where you are around the world. If there's an adult entertainer or adult business you want to support, please do support them, because your vote does matter and the vote is what will help them win. So check them out. And if there's someone there you don't recognize, Google them. You'll find them online, whether they're on OnlyFans, and who knows, you might find the next best content you've never discovered, and it's all because you dipped your toes into the Australian waters. So check out X Awards AU on Instagram and Twitter. And then for our websites, you can check out Sweet Release Agency and what we're doing for over 2,386 businesses, because our numbers are changing daily due to COVID. But you can check out what we're doing with these amazing businesses around the world at sweetrelease.agency. There's no .com, no .au. Just type in sweetrelease.agency and xawards.com.au to vote for your favorite Aussie business or entertainer. And if you have questions about the adult industry, or you're stuck with what you want to do with your career or your business, please do not hesitate to message me directly. I love getting questions. Instagram seems to blow up a lot for me with people asking, how do I get into the industry? I want to become a porn star. Or, where do I advertise? I even get people asking me, what's the best sex toy because I'm struggling to have an orgasm. I'm happy to answer these questions, and I always find it exciting when someone messages me back and says, I did this and it worked. So please feel free to reach out to me directly. And my Instagram is just JETT, Jett Black AU for Australia. So you'll be able to find me on Instagram that way and hit me up and send me some questions. More than happy to help.
Fuck yeah. Jett, I appreciate you coming on. This has been great.
It's been great chatting with you. Thank you for letting me chew your ear off.
Oh, fuck yeah. Listeners, we will be back. All right, later. That was my interview with Jett Black. Yo, shout out Jett. I appreciate you coming on the podcast. That was a good time. Listeners, he just plugged it. I will plug it again. You can find him on Twitter at JettBlackAU. Sweet Release is on Twitter as well at SweetReleaseAU_. Their website, sweetrelease.agency. I'll have a link to all of those in the Libsyn page from this week, so make sure you hit that Libsyn page. Give them a follow. If you're on social media, we are as well. We are at Full Service Pod on Instagram and Twitter. My personal Instagram and Twitter at Tank Funkadelic. If you enjoy the podcast, make sure you subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to us on. Hit that like button, hit that follow button, hit whatever button makes it so that whenever we release a new episode, you get alerted. You know, whatever button that is. But I appreciate you being here. Episode 54. It's done. It's over. It's in the books. We will be back next Tuesday. Who's my guest? Oh boy, I don't know. I feel like it'll probably be a solo episode. I haven't done a solo episode in a few weeks, so it'll either be a solo episode or I'll have another interview. Who knows what's happening. Either way, we will be back on Tuesday. If you enjoy the podcast, make sure you hit us with a 5-star rating, write a 5-star review. I will love you forever. If you want to be on the podcast, if you want to hear anything talked about on the podcast, if you just want to write in and let us know how you're doing, send us an email, fullservicepod@gmail.com. I'm going to stop talking. This episode's over. I will see you on Tuesday. Later. Full Service.